Okay, so you're starting university, maybe engineering, something tough, and you walk into that first programming class.
Yeah.
And it hits you pretty fast, right? Some people just get it. Maybe they've coded for years.
Oh, absolutely. And others feel like they're, well, completely lost at sea. It's that classic higher ed shock.
Especially with technical subjects like programming, where it feels like you're building something like a craft.
Exactly. It's cumulative. You miss a step, and suddenly everything feels impossible. The information overload is just immense for first years.
That feeling of being overwhelmed, maybe even paralyzed.
Yeah.
That's what we're digging into today.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a specific way to tackle this, a program called OLA, the Onboarding Learning Alliance.
Right, OLA. It's a structured approach they're using. Specifically, we're looking at Campus Porsgrunn and their big intro programming course.
Programming for beregning, I think it's called.
That's the one. And our info comes straight from the people involved, the lecturer Ola Marius Lysaker, and a couple of the learning facilitators, Erik Lunde and Christoffer Redmund Tilrem.
And what's really interesting is how they've set up different kinds of student help. It's not just the usual teaching assistant model.
No, it's more nuanced. They've really thought about providing actual conceptual guidance, not just answers.
So let's paint the picture for this course first. Programming for beregning. It's pretty big, right?
Oh, yeah. Massive. About 400 students digitally, maybe closer to 200, actually, there in Porsgrunn.
And the skill gap?
Huge. Totally extreme. You've got students who've been coding since they were kids, literally, and others who are seeing code for the very first time, starting from scratch.
And programming isn't like history, where you can kind of catch up later, maybe.
Not really. Lysaker points out it's a craft. You have to do it, you practice, you get it, and things become, well, relatively simple.
But if you don't get that initial practice,
then it quickly becomes, frankly, incomprehensible. It leads to this stark either result they were seeing. Either you master it or you're completely lost.
Wow, that sounds intense. For a first-year student, that's a scary place to be. Why does programming do that, create that split?
It's like building blocks, you know? Everything depends on the previous concept. If you don't quite grasp what a loop really is, if that block isn't solid, then anything that uses loops, conditions, structures just won't make sense. You stumble on step 1, and step 5 looks like complete nonsense.
And that explains why they saw such polarized results performance-wise.
Exactly. You get a group acing it and another group just falling further and further behind.
Now, they did have the standards set up before OLA, didn't they? Lectures and then these practice sessions, øvingstimer.
Yep. Led by student assistants. That's the typical model.
So if that wasn't enough for the students struggling, what was missing? Why wasn't that working?
Well, the key thing missing was focused, active reflection on the concepts, not just grinding through the exercises.
Okay.
The standard practice session, the øvingstime, it puts the burden on the student. You have to realize you're stuck, then you have to find an assistant, wait your turn.
And if you're already feeling lost or maybe a bit embarrassed?
You hide. Exactly. You might eventually get help on that one specific problem, but you haven't understood the why. You haven't built the foundation to solve the next problem.
Which brings us to OLA, the Onboarding Learning Alliance. How does that change things?
It shifts the focus fundamentally, away from just problem solving towards community and understanding depth.
So practically, what does it look like?
Instead of one huge room for practice, they break the class into small groups, OLA groups, about 15 students in each.
Okay, smaller groups. That sounds manageable.
And crucially, these aren't led by the regular student assistants. They're led by learning facilitators.
Learning facilitators, what's the difference?
It's a completely different role. These are experienced students, yeah, but they're trained specifically to lead the process of learning, not just provide answers.
So it's less about here's the solution and more about how do we think about this?
Precisely. The whole point of the OLA group is digging into the how and the why. Why does this code work? How does this concept connect to others? It's about reasoning, talking it through, collaborating.
Let's really hammer down this distinction because it feels central. Student assistant versus learning facilitator. Two roles, two different learning environments.
Yeah, it's critical. The student assistant in the big practice session, their main job is to help you get the solution. You're stuck, they help you get unstuck on that task.
Right.
The learning facilitator in the OLA group, they're supporting the learning process itself. They're like a process leader.
More like a guide than an answer key.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The assistant is the mechanic who fixes the immediate problem with your car. The facilitator is the driving instructor helping you understand why the car keeps stalling and how to drive better overall.
Okay, that makes sense. And it sounds like you can't just sit passively in an OLA group then.
Definitely not. That's by design. Like the lecturer said, in a big lecture, you can be invisible. In practice hour, you have to step up and ask.
But in OLA.
You're seen. You can't really hide in a group of 15. It forces you to engage, to think about what you actually understand or don't understand, and it's meant to be a safe space to do that.
One of the facilitators, Christoffer, I think, put nicely, he said something like, the practice session helps you solve the task, but the OLA group talks about why the solution works.
That's it. Dialogue over delivery, which, can be tough, especially when students just want the answer.
So how do they make that work? How do they build that reflective environment?
A lot of it comes down to this idea of TRIGET.
TRIGET. Security, trust, that feeling of safety.
Exactly that. The facilitators really stress this. Because the OLA groups are fixed, same 15 people meet every week, they build familiarity, trust develops.
And when you trust the people around you,
you're more willing to be vulnerable. To ask that question you think sounds stupid, the basic questions you never ask in front of 200 people or even wait in line to ask an assistant.
Vulnerability is crucial for learning, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to admit what you don't know.
Absolutely. And they saw these groups change over time. They start as academic study groups, but often become like a real vennaging, a group of friends.
A social support system, too.
Yeah. And when you have that sense of belonging, that community, the learning just flows better. The fear drops away.
So, okay, they've got this safe space. How do the facilitators actually guide the discussion without just giving answers? What happens in a typical session?
They have techniques. They often start really basic. Erik, another facilitator, mentioned they might kick off with something like, okay, let's talk about loops. What is a loop, fundamentally?
Going right back to basics.
Yep. And then they use the students' own assignments, the ones they're working on, as discussion points. They review the code together, collaboratively. Why did you do this? What concept does this show?
So the goal isn't just, does the code run?
No, not at all. It's, can you explain what this code is doing, why it's doing it, what's the underlying idea? They actively try to draw everyone in, the quiet ones too, asking specific questions to get them talking.
That sounds like it requires some real skill from the facilitators.
Yeah.
They can't just be good programmers. They need to be good. Well, facilitators.
Totally. And they get training for it. That's a big part of the OLA model.
Training? What kind?
They get trained by EDU, that's the university's unit for digitization and educational quality. They learn about active learning, how to structure sessions, and crucially, facilitation techniques.
Like what?
Like how to ask good guiding questions, not leading questions. How to know when to step back and let the group figure it out. How to meet the students where they are. Start with their current understanding, not where you think they should be.
It's almost like teaching them a kind of Socratic method for coding.
Kind of, yeah. It's about guiding the thought process, helping students see why their approach is working or where the logic breaks down, teaching them how to think like a programmer.
The lecturer, Lysaker, had a nice analogy for this, didn't he? Something about a toolkit.
Yeah, filling a conceptual toolkit piece by piece, putting the building blocks in place.
Rather than just grabbing tools randomly for each task.
Exactly. When those concepts, the building blocks, click into place through this kind of reflection and discussion, then students start to see the bigger picture. They understand the why behind it all, not just the how for one specific problem.
So, has it worked? What's the actual impact been on student performance?
The results seem pretty clear. They said it's really helped level the playing field.
How so?
Remember that either split? They've moved away from that. Performance is now much more like a normal distribution curve.
Meaning fewer students are completely lost. More are getting a handle on it.
Exactly. More students are getting that crucial foothold, passing the course. It shows that building trust and focusing on the why actually pays off academically.
And they even have this extra push before exams. The Codealg.
Right, the code weekend. Just before the final exams, they run this intensive workshop.
What happens there?
It's like a final booster shot. Repetition, more practice, lots of support available from both the facilitators and the student assistants. Reinforces concepts, builds confidence, tackles last-minute motivation dips. It's quite holistic.
So, summing it up, OLA seems to give first years two really vital things.
Yeah.
One, a space designed for actual thinking, for reflecting on concepts, not just getting answers.
Deep learning.
And two, maybe even more importantly, it builds community, that vennaging, that sense of belonging in what can be a pretty intimidating new environment.
Absolutely critical. The facilitators said for many students, that OLA group is the first place at university where they feel they actually fit in, where they belong, and that unlocks so much potential for learning.
And from the teaching side, it sounds like it's beneficial too. It's not just rescuing struggling students, it improves the whole system.
Yeah, it gives educators real insight into how students are actually learning or struggling to learn. It makes student-led learning feel genuinely valuable and, well, inspiring.
Which leaves us with a thought for you, the listener. When you're faced with a big knowledge gap, either learning something yourself or helping someone else learn, how much more powerful is it to have a guide who focuses on how to think about the problem, the why, rather than just providing the quick fix, the solution?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Maybe think about your own work, your own interactions. Where could you shift from being the answer person to being more of a facilitator? Someone who helps others build that deeper conceptual confidence through reflection and dialogue.
Because teaching someone how to think rather than just what to think, that might be the most valuable skill transfer there is.